Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Buddha. In a world full of noise, expectations, and endless chasing, it's easy to lose sight of who we truly are. We run after success, love, and approval, thinking that once we have it all, life will finally feel easier. But deep down, many of us discover the opposite. The more we chase, the heavier life feels. Buddhism teaches us a timeless truth. Life doesn't become easier when you control everything outside of you. It becomes easier when you finally find yourself. And while this is one of the hardest lessons to learn, it is also the most liberating. Finding yourself means removing the masks, letting go of illusions, and embracing your authentic being. It's a journey that transforms confusion into clarity, struggle into peace, and fear into freedom. In this video, we'll explore 7 powerful Buddhist lessons that will guide you back to yourself, so you can live with more ease, more truth, and more peace than ever before. If you've ever felt lost, disconnected, or burdened by life, this may be the turning point you've been searching for. Lesson 1. Stop searching outside, look within. We live in a world that constantly tells us happiness lies somewhere outside of ourselves. We believe that if we get the right job, the right relationship, or enough money, we'll finally feel complete. But Buddhism teaches that this search is endless, because external things are temporary. When you stop chasing outside and turn your focus inward, something shifts. You begin to notice the peace that was always within you. You realize that joy doesn't depend on circumstances. It comes from self-awareness, mindfulness, and inner balance. Looking within doesn't mean ignoring the world. It means discovering a center so strong that no matter what happens around you, you remain steady. It's like finding shelter in the middle of a storm. The storm may rage, but inside there is calm. True happiness is not about adding more to your life. It's about uncovering what's already inside you. And that discovery begins when you stop searching outside and finally look within. Lesson 2. Acceptance ends the struggle. Most of our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens to us. It comes from resisting what is. Think about it. When life doesn't go according to our plans, we fight against it in our minds. Why me? This shouldn't have happened. I wish things were different. That inner resistance becomes a constant battle, draining our energy and stealing our peace. Buddhism teaches that acceptance is the key to ending this struggle. Acceptance doesn't mean you have to like everything that happens. It doesn't mean you become passive or stop growing. It simply means you stop wasting energy fighting against reality. You acknowledge what is, and from that place of clarity, you decide your next step. When you practice acceptance, you begin to see life for what it is, not for what you wish it to be. Instead of being trapped in disappointment, you learn to adapt and flow. For example, imagine holding on tightly to a rope that's burning your hands. The more you resist letting go, the more you suffer. But once you release, the pain begins to fade. Acceptance is that release. It is the surrender that allows healing. It's the moment you stop arguing with life and start living it. And strangely, when you accept the present moment fully, you gain the power to change it, not from a place of desperation, but from wisdom and strength. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Acceptance is the doorway to that peace. When you accept yourself, your past, your mistakes, and even the challenges of today, the struggle dissolves. What remains is clarity, calm, and the freedom to move forward without the heavy chains of resistance. Lesson 3. Letting go of masks brings freedom. From the moment we are young, we start wearing masks. We learn how to act so others will like us, how to speak so we don't upset anyone, and how to hide the parts of ourselves that might be judged. Over time, these masks become so heavy that we forget who we truly are beneath them. In Buddhism, freedom comes not from becoming someone else, but from remembering who you really are. Every mask you wear, whether it's the mask of perfection, success, strength, or even indifference, is a barrier between you and your authentic self. And as long as you keep wearing them, you'll always feel a sense of emptiness inside, because the world is only seeing a performance, not the real you. Think about how exhausting it is to constantly pretend, to always smile when you're hurting, to act confident when you're filled with doubt, to live for others' expectations while ignoring your own truth. That exhaustion is the price of wearing masks. But when you begin to let go, when you dare to remove those layers, you find something incredible: freedom. Freedom to breathe, to live without pretending, to speak your truth without fear. Freedom to be loved, not for the role you play, but for the person you are. The Buddha often taught that attachment to illusions causes suffering, and the masks we wear are just illusions, temporary images designed to please others but never satisfy the soul. Letting them go may feel frightening at first because it means showing your vulnerability, but it is in vulnerability that true strength and connection are found. When you live authentically, the right people are drawn to you. Opportunities align naturally. And most importantly, your inner world becomes light. You no longer carry the weight of pretending to be someone you are not. So ask yourself, what masks am I still wearing? Whose approval am I chasing? Remember this truth: real peace doesn't come from fitting into someone else's idea of you. It comes when you accept yourself and allow the world to see your authentic being. And that is the kind of freedom that no one can take away from you. Lesson 4. Self-compassion heals the wounds. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning how to be kind to ourselves. We often treat others with patience, forgiveness, and understanding. Yet when it comes to ourselves, we can be harsh, unforgiving, and cruel. We replay our mistakes in our minds, criticize our flaws, and hold on to guilt as if punishing ourselves will somehow make us better. But Buddhism teaches that just as compassion towards others can heal, compassion towards yourself can transform your life. Self-compassion does not mean self-pity or weakness. It means recognizing that you are human, that you will stumble, and that imperfection is part of the human experience. Imagine carrying a heavy wound but refusing to clean it because you believe you deserve the pain. The wound never heals. It only deepens. This is how many of us treat our emotional and spiritual wounds. But when you bring compassion to those wounds, when you say to yourself, "It's okay, I forgive you, I still love you," healing begins. The Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Yet we often forget this truth. We wait for others to give us love, validation, or kindness, not realizing that the most important source of love must come from within. Self-compassion is the voice inside that replaces harsh judgment with gentle understanding. It's the choice to rest when you're tired, to forgive when you've failed, and to keep going without tearing yourself apart. It's treating yourself the way you would treat a dear friend. When you practice self-compassion, the weight of guilt, shame, and regret begins to dissolve. You no longer see yourself as broken, but as growing. You begin to heal the old wounds that have kept you trapped in self-doubt. And here's the beauty: when you learn to love and forgive yourself, you naturally extend that love and forgiveness to others. Compassion overflows, not from emptiness, but from wholeness. So the next time you hear that critical voice inside your mind, pause and ask, if someone I love was going through this, what would I say to them? Then offer those same words to yourself. Because when you give yourself compassion, you stop being your own enemy and finally become your greatest ally. And in that shift, life itself becomes lighter, softer, and more peaceful. Lesson 5. Detachment reveals your true self. Most of us grow up believing that who we are is defined by what we have, what we achieve, or how others see us. We attach our identity to labels. I am my job. I am my money. I am my reputation. I am my relationships. And when those things are threatened or taken away, we feel lost. as if a piece of us has disappeared. Buddhism teaches that this is the root of suffering, attachment to things that are temporary. Everything in life, possessions, status, relationships, even our bodies changes with time. And if your sense of self depends on them, then your peace will rise and fall like the tides. Detachment is not about giving up everything or running away from the world. It doesn't mean coldness or indifference. True detachment means recognizing that while you can enjoy things, they do not define you. You can love deeply, but you don't cling. You can work hard, but your worth isn't tied to your job. You can have possessions, but they don't own you. Think of the sky. Clouds pass through it, sometimes heavy storms, sometimes light and beautiful shapes. Yet the sky itself is never touched. Detachment is like remembering that you are the sky, not the clouds. The events, roles, and possessions are temporary clouds that come and go, but your true self remains vast, unchanging, and free. When you practice detachment, you begin to see yourself more clearly. Without the weight of false identities, you realize, I am not just this body, this name, or this story. I am something deeper, something timeless. And in that realization, fear begins to fade. You are no longer afraid of losing things because you know they were never truly who you were to begin with. Detachment reveals a powerful truth. That freedom doesn't come from holding tighter, it comes from letting go. And when you let go, you don't lose yourself. Instead, you uncover your most authentic self, the one that was always there, waiting beneath the layers of attachment. So ask yourself, what am I clinging to that is keeping me from peace? What labels am I wearing that are not truly me? When you release them, even just a little, you will feel lighter. And in that lightness, you will glimpse your real self, free, vast, and unshakable. Lesson 6. Inner peace is more valuable than approval. From the moment we are children, we are taught to seek approval. A smile from a parent, a gold star from a teacher, applause from an audience. These become the signs that we are good enough, worthy, and loved. And so, without even realizing it, we grow into adults who are constantly chasing validation from the world around us. We dress a certain way to be accepted. We speak a certain way to be admired. We achieve not for our own fulfillment, but for the recognition of others. We build our identity around likes, comments, compliments, and external validation. But here's the painful truth. No matter how hard you try, not everyone will approve of you. No matter how good you are, someone will criticize, misunderstand, or reject you. And if your peace depends on approval, you will never truly rest. Buddhism teaches that inner peace is more valuable than approval because approval is temporary, but peace can last a lifetime. Approval shifts like the wind. Today people may praise you, tomorrow the same people may turn away. If you tie your worth to their opinions, your life will feel like a constant storm. Inner peace, on the other hand, comes from within. It comes from knowing your intentions are pure, your actions are aligned with your values, and your heart is at ease with itself. When you live this way, you no longer need the world to clap for you. You become your own source of peace. Think of the Buddha himself. During his life, many admired and respected him, but many also criticized and rejected his teachings. If he had lived for approval, his mission would have ended. Instead, he lived for truth and inner peace. That is why his presence still inspires the world thousands of years later. Approval is like drinking salt water. It seems to quench your thirst, but the more you drink, the thirstier you become. Inner peace is like fresh, flowing water. It nourishes you deeply, and you no longer crave the world's endless validation. Now ask yourself, how much of your stress comes from worrying about what others think? How often do you silence your truth to fit in or push yourself to exhaustion just to look successful? This is the trap of approval, and escaping it begins with one brave choice: valuing peace over applause. When you choose inner peace, you may lose some approval, but you gain something far greater: freedom. Freedom to live by your values, not by others' expectations. Freedom to say no without guilt, to follow your own path without fear, and to love yourself without waiting for permission. Buddhism reminds us that real strength is calmness of mind. A person who has found peace within is unshakable because their happiness no longer rises and falls with opinions. They can stand in a crowd of critics and still feel steady. They can walk a lonely path and still feel whole. Of course, letting go of the need for approval is not easy. It feels scary to risk rejection, to disappoint others, to step away from what society expects. But remember this: even if the whole world approves of you, if you are at war with yourself, you will never feel peace. And even if the whole world criticizes you, if you are at peace with yourself, you will never feel broken. True approval, the only approval that matters, comes from within. When you look in the mirror and know you live with honesty, kindness, and courage, your heart rests easy, and that feeling is worth more than 1,000 praises. So the next time you feel yourself chasing validation, pause and ask, am I choosing approval or am I choosing peace? One will keep you running forever. The other will finally set you free. Remember this truth: the applause fades, the critics fade, but the calm within you, when you live in alignment with your truth, that calm will stay, and it is more valuable than the approval of the entire world. Lesson 7. Living aligned with your truth creates ease. Every day we are faced with choices, big and small, that shape the course of our lives. What career we pursue, who we spend time with, how we speak, how we act, and even what we tolerate. Most people, however, don't make these choices based on their inner truth. They make them based on fear, pressure, expectations, or the endless chase for approval. And the result? A life that feels heavy, exhausting, and misaligned. Buddhism teaches that when you live in alignment with your truth, life itself begins to flow with ease. It doesn't mean there will be no challenges, but it means you stop creating unnecessary suffering for yourself. You stop fighting against your own heart. Think about it. Have you ever tried to live a life that wasn't yours? Maybe you stayed in a job that drained you just because it looked good to others. Maybe you stayed silent in situations where your heart was screaming to speak. Maybe you lived for others' expectations, constantly wearing masks just to fit in. That inner conflict is what makes life so difficult, because every step you take away from your truth is a step deeper into struggle. Living aligned with your truth is the opposite of that. It is living in harmony with who you are, what you value, and what you deeply believe. It is when your words, your actions, and your inner heart are all pointing in the same direction. And in that state, even when challenges come, there is still a sense of lightness, because you know you are being true to yourself. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when there is disharmony between what we are and how we live. When your inner world and outer actions are in conflict, your mind feels restless, anxious, and uneasy. But when they align, that restlessness disappears. You no longer feel divided. You no longer live as two different people, the one the world sees and the one your soul knows. You become whole again. Imagine rowing a boat against the current. Every stroke takes effort, yet you feel stuck, frustrated, and tired. That's what it feels like to live out of alignment with your truth. Now imagine turning the boat around, moving with the flow of the river. The effort is still there. You're still rowing, but suddenly there's ease. Life moves with you instead of against you. That is the power of alignment. But here's the challenge. Living aligned with your truth requires courage, because your truth may not always match society's expectations. It may not always please your family, friends, or community. It may even mean letting go of things you once thought were essential. And this is why so many people avoid it. They prefer the comfort of conformity to the discomfort of authenticity. Yet the irony is this: the more you betray yourself to keep others happy, the more suffering you create. You might avoid conflict on the outside, but inside a war begins. You might win approval, but you lose your peace. And peace, once lost, is far harder to recover than approval. Living aligned with your truth does not mean selfishness. It does not mean disregarding others or living without responsibility. In Buddhism, truth is rooted in compassion, wisdom, and awareness. To live your truth is to live in a way that honors both yourself and the world around you. It is walking a path where your soul feels at home, where your actions reflect your heart, and where your being radiates integrity. When you live this way, something magical happens. Ease enters your life, not because everything outside suddenly becomes perfect, but because the constant inner struggle disappears. You stop pretending, you stop forcing, you stop carrying the heavy burden of being someone you are not, and in its place you discover freedom, clarity, and peace. Think about the great teachers, monks, and sages throughout history. Many of them faced criticism, rejection, or even exile for living their truth. But none of them abandoned it. Why? Because they understood that approval is fleeting, but truth is eternal. And when you live your truth, even the hardest path feels lighter than the easiest lie. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I lived completely in alignment with my truth? What decisions would I make differently? Who would I become if I stopped pretending and started living honestly? Maybe your truth is that you need to walk away from a toxic relationship. Maybe it's that you're meant to pursue a calling that others don't understand. Maybe it's simply allowing yourself to rest, to heal, to stop proving and start being. Whatever it is, know this: the cost of ignoring your truth will always be greater than the cost of honoring it. Buddhism reminds us that the path to liberation is not about becoming someone new. It's about shedding everything false until only your true self remains. And when you live from that place, ease is no longer something you chase. It becomes the natural state of your existence. So live aligned with your truth. Speak honestly. Act with integrity. Follow the quiet wisdom of your heart, even when it's difficult. For in the end, it is far better to walk a hard road that is yours than to walk an easy road that was never meant for you. When you choose truth, you choose peace. When you choose truth, you choose freedom. And when you choose truth, you finally discover that life, in its deepest essence, was never meant to be a struggle. It was always meant to flow with ease. In Buddhism, the journey is never about becoming someone else. It is about awakening to who you already are. These 7 lessons are not rules, but gentle reminders pointing you back to your own inner truth. When you look within, you find clarity. When you accept life, you find peace. When you let go of masks and attachments, you discover freedom. When you choose compassion, peace over approval, and live aligned with your truth, you walk the Buddha's path, the path of liberation. Remember, suffering is not the enemy, clinging is. Peace is not something you chase, it is something you uncover within. The Buddha's way is simple, yet profound: to live mindfully, to see things as they are, and to walk each step with awareness and truth. So take these lessons with you, not as distant ideas, but as practices for your daily life. Sit in stillness, breathe with presence, and let your actions reflect your heart. For when you follow the Buddhism way, life no longer feels like a struggle against the current. Instead, it becomes a flowing river, calm, steady, and full of meaning. And as the Buddha taught, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, man cannot live without a spiritual life. May these teachings guide you closer to yourself, closer to peace, and closer to freedom.